do like a lot of different electronic music, and I myself am writing sort of experimental electronic punky things, mostly with my own vocals, which are somewhat artless. And I've been coming to these feedback sessions almost since the very beginning of when they were hosted by Nathan, and so I guess I've been a regular, and so I'm super psyched that we're doing it virtually.
Great. And did you send it in a track?
I did. Well, because my tracks, oh yeah, I forgot to mention this. Most of the tracks I write are only 1 minute long. So I actually sent a few links to tracks. You said send a link to a track as opposed to the track, so I sent you SoundCloud, but I can send you attachments if you want.
Either way is fine.
Yeah, so I sent you links in sort of priority order, and we can do one and talk about it, and then if there's more time, we can do another one, and so on.
Okay, great.
If we want to play something, should we upload it?
Yeah, if you want to play something, no, just send us a link or an MP3 or a wave, whatever. Just send it to hello@343labs.com.
Perfect. I'll pass it on and send.
Do you have a preference of whether we send an audio file versus a SoundCloud link?
John.
Hi. Either way.
I mean, yes. How would we do that though?
With
they
screen
just
sharing.
share their screen.
No problem.
You can also route your sound from the DAW into Zoom.
Yep.
Okay, so
that's right. There's a little bit of a technical thing to go through if we're going to set anyone who hasn't already set that up. When you first share your computer sound, when screen sharing, Zoom asks you to install a driver, which shows up as an audio device, and then you would go into your DAW and select the Zoom device for your output. And when you share your screen, the audio going through the Zoom device will be heard by all of us in the meeting.
Albeit in mono, unless you really find a deep setting in Zoom.
Right. I have mine, for example, to set up to send stereo. I think all the instructors and people at 343 Lab are sending stereo, but it's okay. Listening in mono is all right too. I mean, the reason why we might do that is if I'm listening to one of your tracks, there he goes, just like that. If I'm listening to one of your tracks and I'm thinking, there's an element in there I want to look at more closely, then we have the option of, if it doesn't take up too much of everybody's time, then we can do what he's doing right now, sharing his screen and showing your project, and we can take a look. And I can even potentially take over your mouse and click around.
Yes. Okay. So we have that option. Just want to get through the rest. On. Just give us a little intro.
Just looking for the mute button. Yeah, I'm into all kinds of music, but I really have always been super into how the creative process with music works with technology and computers. And so that's sort of what brought me to 343. I've been, I think, to probably the majority of these feedback sessions with Nathan, and I always enjoyed them. I enjoy the community, and the feedback's always great. So it's great to be here.
Great, thank you, On. So everyone that would like to play, could you just type your name so that we can get a list of everyone? And then I think normally we did 15 minutes, but that might be too long. We might, depending on how many people are playing. We have Ivan, On, Meryl, Keegan, Adonis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, this should be fine. Andrew. Oh, hey, Andreas, forgot about you. Are you on mic? Can you say a little hello? Andreas. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm Andreas. I was doing like dance music and stuff like that for a while, and now I'm doing more instrumentals and just like guitar instrumentals, things like that, R&B beats for vocalists. We're trying that would be the end goal would be to get vocalists to sing or learn how to mix vocals as well. So that's where I'm at right now.
You're sounding a bit like Darth Vader with us.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have to figure. This is the first time I'm using this stuff. So
okay, no worries.
Troubleshooting stuff.
Okay, cool. So, John, why don't you go ahead and pick? Let's do 15 minutes each. Thomas is going to keep the time. 15 minutes to play the track and give feedback. Okay, so, and it's going to be, we're going to have just John give feedback. There's going to be a slightly different format. So, John, you get to pick someone. You're muted.
Okay. I forget. Am I still muted?
No, you're
No.
good.
Okay. Well, just as a quick aside, for how Zoom works, since everybody's muted, you can hold down your space bar to talk, and then when you're done, let go of the space bar, you'll be muted again. So you don't have to keep clicking it on and off. It's a nice shortcut.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you can be temporarily unmuted. Thomas has the files. I don't have the files, so I
did just, there was a slight change of plan, so Max wanted me to send you them. So I sent you some emails just now, or an email. But I'm happy to share the links here in the chat if that's easier, or directly to you in the chat. Whatever. There's one that's an MP3.
Or if we want to use
they're
the Zoom
all-
audio driver with our DAW, should we just play it straight out of our DAW?
That would work.
So who's ready with the DAW then? Is anybody?
Almost, but not quite.
All right, well, let me see. I'm going to send John some links in here.
I just got my email open again, and I'm taking a look at the links. We can just go ahead and do them in order received if that makes it easy. And
Yeah.
if you want to, I'll just pick one and we'll see who it is. And if we want to switch over to your DAW, we can do that. So let me just take a quick look.
I seem to be missing my audio driver for Zoom, so I'm going to quickly drop off the call and reinstall. It'll take 1 second.
I'm not going to even attempt to install the Zoom driver. Maybe if there's a screen share, you could do the screen share and then play the link. Is that a way to go maybe too?
Yeah, well, right now the first one I clicked on happened to be Adonis. And full disclosure, he is a previously existing private student of mine. So, welcome to the 343 Lab community now. And I have a good idea sort of what to expect here. But let me just get my screen sharing going and we'll all hear what he submitted. Everybody see that?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay.
devotions.
Right. That sounded pretty good. Yeah, everybody snap your fingers for Adonis. Although no one could hear you because you're all muted. So let's see. You're still seeing my my screen share, I think, right? Yeah. All right. So first thing that comes to mind, I mean, looking at the positive stuff, it's very tight arrangement. It's clean and clear. Things are mixed well. Pretty good energy level. The part where I started being a little more critical, I think, was the break and the level of tension that's there, and how it maybe it's effective. It works. I'm not going to say it doesn't work, but I think you could look at the subtleties of some of the layers and elements in the break and how they're kind of building or changing over time. And then when it comes back, you're doing kind of the anticlimax, right? It's full and then everything goes away and then you just have the kick in the bass pretty much. Of course, that can work really, really well. I think in this case, the first thing that jumped out was the bass sound on its own. When it's just sort of supporting everything else, and when the main groove is going on, the bass line, it sits there, it's fine. But when it's by itself, it felt a little bit lacking in energy. Like if it was a bit bigger, a bit fuller, a little bit more saturated, a little bit sharper on the top, I think I would look at that. And you might, and we've talked about this before, actually, about how modulating parameters over time using automation or MIDI control or whatever to adjust the tone of the sound in your arrangement. And this might be a place to look at that, where you want to have a bit more impact by increasing the intensity of that bass sound. Do we have time to take a quick look at your arrangement, or do we need to keep things moving, Max?
You have 7 minutes, so you can look at the arrangement.
Great. Let's try that. So yeah, Adonis, if you don't mind trying to do a screen share.
All right.
If you're up for it, up to you.
Yeah. So I'll flip this around. I won't be able to get sound through though.
Well, if you're using the Zoom app, the client will install the driver when you do it the first time, and you don't have to restart anything. It'll say, "Do you want to install it?" And you say yes, and then it works. It's pretty easy. So let's give it a try.
Yeah. So I click share screen, and I get this thing that says you cannot start screen share while other participants.
Okay, so John, you need to jump off.
Oh, that's me. All right, let's stop my screen share then.
Okay.
And then Adonis, when you see that share, when you hit share screen, it's going to ask you what you want to share. I would just share your full screen, but make sure to check the share audio as well. There's a small computer audio, small checkbox at the bottom left.
Yeah, share computer sound, and then optimize screen share for video. No, just flip it around. Okay.
You don't have to do that.
All right, so share. Oh, I gotta install. Wait.
Yeah. And there's the audio device it's asking you to install.
I don't know
And you can, if you check your preferences, you should be able to select the Zoom device for your audio output.
In Ableton Live, or?
Yeah,
that's right, in Ableton.
Oh, look at that. Cool. All right.
Now let's see if that works.
Let's see, does that work? Does that work? You hear
Sounded pretty good.
Okay. There you go.
Adonis, do you hear it? Just so that I know how to set mine up? You do. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zoom passes it through to whatever the audio device you've selected in Zoom is.
That's
so
cool. Well,
makes it easy.
Thanks for listening. I just made this morning because I wanted to be a part of this, but It's super.
You work fast.
It's super embarrassing. I was like, oh my God.
Dude, holy damn. It's morning. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I just hit, what should I do?
Well, yeah, let's zoom in and look at your break for a
Okay.
couple of minutes and see what's playing in there, and then we'll take a look at your bass sound and see if we can't fatten it up a little bit.
All right. So there's two. This is the bass right here, which is this thing here. Oh, this one, the one that like kind of comes out of nowhere. Is it this one? Let me see. That or
No, I mean that's a cool sound. I'm thinking more your main bass groove that's playing
This,
through most
right.
of the track. Let's listen to the whole track just from bar 81.
okay. Right there.
Okay, do you mind pausing? So I started, it's good, it's effective. There's a lot of tension and a lot of energy there, but I felt like halfway through, I wanted a little more change. And it could be subtle, but that main sort of lead melody that's repeating, dun,
This
dun,
arc
dun,
right
dun,
here.
dun.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, I think it's sort of, you just, I saw you adjust something. I think you made it fade up a little bit.
Yeah.
If
Kind
that
of came in
sound,
kind of hard.
if,
Yeah.
yeah, if you look into that sound and maybe look into how you might play with it a little bit, and even beyond just a filter, like not just going from dark to bright, but like what could you do to this sound to make it sort of progress? For example, maybe at the beginning of the break, you could kind of sneak it in, and if you look at like your amp envelope, if it were to be a little more shorter and pluckier, like bring down the sustain, bring down the decay time so it's a little bit shorter, a little bit like less dense in the beginning, and then as the break progresses and the buildup starts to happen, then you could increase the decay, increase the sustain, and start to increase the density of that. That's one thing you could try.
Okay.
Another, it's got some effects on it, right? It's got a delay.
Yeah, I got this filter, this delay, some auto pan, EQ.
So, and I know this
John,
is something.
you have 2 minutes. Just give me a heads up. Yep.
All right. So I'm not going to say he should do all this. I just wanted to point out elements that he can work on later. So you could play with the feedback, maybe use the filter on the delay. So like as you increase the feedback, and then you could cut out some of the lows in the delay so it gets a little bit brighter and a little more washed out. And then so we don't run out of time, let's take a look at your bass real quick.
This one here.
That's right.
I have a whole lot on this.
So yeah, right away you're tweaking it, you're playing with it already. What you're doing is sort of along the lines of what I was thinking of. It's like opening it up a little bit more, making it a little more growly, a little more stompy. It doesn't have to be over the top, of course, but you know, we don't have to completely go to the extreme. Yeah. All right, you're getting into some overtones in there, but like earlier in the track, it's pluckier, it's bouncier, it's maybe a little more housey kind of a bass, and then maybe after the long break, when it comes back in, just to be a little bit more aggressive, it'll help the impact of that drop just a little bit more, and then you can go back down from there.
Yeah.
So as you taper out in the end of the arrangement. So anyway.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
there
thanks.
You go. Sure. You're welcome.
All right. So I'll stop sharing and mute it so you don't have to hear my kids.
And John, this is our first feedback session, so I'm also gonna leave it kind of open to you. Like, if you think 15 minutes is not long enough and you would prefer to just focus on fewer submissions and spend longer time on them, that's fine too. Then some people may not be able to go, but they can go next week. Whatever you want to do.
You know, we're flexible. We can figure out the best way to proceed. So I guess we should figure out who's next. I guess I'll go back to my email.
And just as a side note, Adonis, I just sent you an email of just like, I just sent you a message of like some things I think is cool. Usually like, it's a lot of us already know, but like we just have the time. But like, all I'll just say is Dylan's looking through that. Just my biggest thing with your thing was just like, you have all the elements, whatever you want the song to be. Now you can just literally split and splice of how you want to arrange it. Yeah.
That's actually a great idea. Why don't, if you feel free to give each other feedback, you can either do it privately or you can do it in the group chat, and we can just kind of comment on that if as it comes to you. But let's have John give like most of the feedback verbally. All right, cool. Who's next?
Okay, so I don't have names on all of these, but I guess you'll know who you are when I share my screen. Right. So we have Office Party, Lo-Fi Guitar Instrumental 4.
Yeah,
Is that you? All right. Right on. Nice work. I'm feeling sufficiently chilled out right now. And so yeah, someone asked in the chat if you played the guitar, and it seems the answer is you recorded and played it all. So yeah, that's cool. Can you can unmute your mic so we can talk a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about your. It's a little choppy,
like,
but
working or no?
working. It's just a little. There's a little bit of a dropout. It could be your upload.
I mean, is
speed or
it
something.
off? Like, can you hear it, or is it?
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
So I guess I would ask, tell tell us a little bit about your setup and your process, just quickly, like what you're using to record and arrange. What DAW you're using and what your
I'm
instruments
using
are.
Ableton. Like, always been using Ableton. And so like a lot of the drums I just lay down using like one shots and stuff, and then from there, like the main chords and stuff are really I kind of chop up, like I'll get like a Rhodes loop or something that I like, and I chop it and pitch it and just do all kinds of stuff like that and get the groove going. And then bass as well, I just kind of have like one shots or a loop of like a live bass that I like to then chop up and pitch and just kind of get the groove like that going. Obviously, like recording a live bass would be ideal, but I don't have a live bass. I only have a guitar. So, and then once I have the like prepared track, I go back and play guitar over it and just like maybe some chords, some like a couple lines, like kind of things like that. And then from there, I like just jam for like 3-4 minutes and then go loop through in Ableton. You can select the sample to loop, and then you can scroll through it and just choose the best parts and kind of select the best parts of it. And then, basic, like really, this was done in a couple hours this morning. So the whole track from scratch. So I didn't really have time to go and do like the actual, like really fine tune all the mixing and stuff. So the guitar is really just a little bit of echo, and then some reverb and a little bit of EQ, and the different parts have different delays and stuff just to vary it up. Like the intro I think is an 8th note or something, and then the verses are like quarter note or something like that, and it's like it's a little bit as well. So the one.
No, that's good. It gives me. I mean, it gives me a good idea of where to focus on. Because I could hear like there's the mix, for being rough is fairly polished. You're using compression and EQ, and the sounds are, it's well put together. And then it's the sound of the guitar is, it's not fully mixed yet. We could tell like that it sounds kind of demo level, and the fact you just recorded it quickly this morning, then that totally explains it, right? You haven't polished it yet. That said, one very fundamental thing that stood out to me right away was the guitar strings are not exactly in tune. So I don't know if anyone else heard some small slight out of tune notes. Anybody else notice that? I know it could be a stylistic choice.
That's how you can tell it's real.
It could be my performance is not great. So ideally, like I would have someone play it, like a session player would just play it, and they would do
okay.
a better job. Like the performance is like 80% of it. I think it'll mix itself if the performance is good. So my performance.
That's totally true. So all right. Look again. Knowing that this is kind of a like demo stage, right? You're totally on point. That's why I'm not going to get any more critical than that about the guitar sound, because as a producer, I guess you're thinking about the end results, and this is a step along the way. Do I have that right? Is that sort of how you're thinking about it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah. Like if you want to take it to the next step, you would have to probably re-record some of the definitely the guitar and maybe some of the keys. Like you would just re-record some of like a professional would probably put more, like, a better spin on it as well, like better performance as well.
But that said, you could also do it yourself. And it sounds like you're really comfortable with the idea of chopping up samples and arranging and rearranging and making something new out of existing sounds. It would be, and it's totally relevant to this style of music for you to do the same with your guitar playing, even if you're like, you know, you're an okay guitarist, you're better than me, that's for sure. I can't play what you did that well. And, you know, playing it through a few more times, you could probably nail it and then, you know, tune the strings a little bit and have it sound a little bit more, you know, polished in the recording. But then taking, you know, if you were to think of like, if you just were to jam out for a little while and then phrase sample yourself, I mean, you may already be kind of doing that, but even beyond like 4 bars or, you know, sections or 8 bar or 16 bars, like, you know, chop up your guitar and create something different than what you originally played, and that'll give it even more of the, you know, using that production style on your guitar tracks. And then, you know, even playing around more with effects going in, like it's a very clean guitar sound. And I don't mean effects on the like mixing, polishing side. I mean effects on the creative sound design side. Like try playing your guitar through different sorts of saturation and filters, or even kind of amp emulation, and try to get like a, you know, experiment a little bit with the tone of your guitar and lay down a bunch of audio and then go back and then like chop those up, loop them in different ways, rearrange them in different ways, in the same way you might take one shots out of, you know, loops or samples that you have from other sources. So let me know if I'm on track with this, if maybe if this is stuff you've already
That
thought
makes
about
sense. I
doing.
think another thing would be like, I don't have any pedals or anything like that. I guess ideally you would record the guitar with pedals.
Well, you don't have to. Actually, that's a good thing to talk about. Like, how can you improve the guitar sound that you have right now without having to rely on a pro guitarist in a different recording setup? What have you got? How are you routing your guitar into your DAW?
I think he's just fixing his
Is the audio working or no? Is it like cutting still?
We hear you, and I can for the most part understand what you're saying. There's a little bit of glitching in your stream. So, but as long as you kind of speak clearly and close to the mic, I think we'll get what you're going to say.
Okay, so I'm basically plugging in the guitar into the audio interface, and then that's just recording straight into Ableton, basically.
Okay, so your audio interface, it has an instrument input, or is it just a line?
I think it's instrument input that I have.
Okay, well that's the first step.
I mean, because it has my interface, I think it's 2 mic, or it has like, what is it? The ones that you put mic into is like preamp or something. I think it's what it's called, right?
Right. Yeah. Like any audio interface that has a mic input has a preamplifier, and some, you know, quite often, depending on the model of interface you have, a lot of these preamps are switchable between a mic level and an instrument level or a line level. And you definitely want to make sure that it's like a high Z instrument input and not like a regular line to get the best signal out of your guitar. And once you get into the DAW, have you experimented with, like, for example, Live's amp and cabinet for guitar tone, different kinds of guitar tones?
No, I haven't done. I mean, that's something I've done it once and a few times, like a long time ago, and then I've used it a lot for like sound design and like bass music and dance music, like just distorting stuff. But I haven't actually gone back recently and done it actually.
Yeah, I think you should give that a shot for this track. You know, the guitar parts, like, musically are nice, and I think you know, recording yourself through sort of a nicer signal path that gives the guitar a little more of a full sort of round amplified tone. And, you know, you could just start with the presets. There's some good sounding presets will give you different styles of guitar tones, and you don't need a bunch of pedals. You just go straight into the computer and then you could even apply it to what you already recorded and see how you like it. And although I have to say, usually when you're playing guitar through effects, you kind of want to hear yourself through them, and because you're going to play differently when you play through those effects. It's going to affect how you kind of even touch the guitar, how it sounds coming through this processing. So anyway, I think you could come up with them as a producer. Even you're a guitarist as well. Maybe you're not like a pro, but just a little bit more careful performance, and then being a little bit more put on your producer hat about what the sound of the guitar is. I think the end result will be much closer to what you imagine. Max, how are we doing for time?
Yeah, you pretty much you have like maybe 30 seconds, so we're pretty much done. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're there. I like your sketch. You definitely, looking at from the production side, you're making confident choices, and it was a good vibe, and the sound is there. And I think the next level is, as a producer, you can choose to like polish your own performance, or do some sound design and playing around with the samples of your performance. Or of course, as you mentioned earlier, you could go and find a more pro or a guitarist who's a little more practiced to replay it. And I don't know, I think in general you're on the right track. So thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Cool. Great job, Andreas. While John queues up the next track, I just wanted to say hi to Manu. Thanks for joining us. Manu, if you could just give us a quick intro, say hello, and let us know what kind of music you're into, and what brings you to 343 Labs.
You got your mic on?
Yeah, we can't hear you. I think you're muted, Manu. Okay, maybe he's not in an environment where you can talk. That's fine. Cool. John, who's next?
Just a moment while I queue up. I've got an MP3 here. Just 1 second.
Okay. So, I mean, another cool thing about these sessions is obviously, besides getting valuable feedback on your tracks, this is also a great time to just like reconnect, especially in these times where we're all in quarantine. And so this is a great time to see familiar faces and I guess network and exchange, and just show each other that the community is still there, which it still very much is. And it's important to us at 343 to kind of keep that going, so that once this is over, we can jump right back in, and hopefully we'll make some new friends along the way. As you can see, there are now people from different states joining us soon, different countries, and so maybe something good will come out of this. Anyway, I'm going to hand it back over to John.
Right. So I've got a track queued up here. Hula Hoop. Who's responsible for Hula Hoop? Okay, Keegan.
It's me.
Right. So just a moment.
Sean, you're muted.
I swear I was pressing my space bar. Sometimes
Yeah,
you have to
well,
like go switch the focus, like go back to the meeting and then go out of it and go back to the meeting and then it works again. That's happened to me a couple times. Sorry. Anyway, what I was saying is something kind of chill and laid back and moody under the circumstances. That sort of stuff has been hitting the spot lately. So that's that part. That's nice. I like your progressions and your changes. It's not it changes a lot, but it doesn't, and you have these stops and starts. It's a little bit cheeky where it sort of becomes quiet and then you come back in with the bass, and I like that. It sort of has a moody laid back vibe, but it's also lighthearted and playful, so I appreciate that. Interesting chord progressions, and I guess I'm going to think about this for a second. I'm going to let you guys give him a couple of positive comments while I think about stuff to look at. Anyone want to chime in?
so feel free to unmute yourself if you want to say something.
Yeah, I liked the vibe of the piece. I felt like it was kind of taking me places over the course of listening to it, and then I liked the breakdown a lot. I felt like you left me hanging there, just like it couldn't have been a microsecond longer before the end, but then it was very satisfying when it came in. So I thought it was a really cool track.
Thanks, Evan. I also agree. I think, who was it? Andrews, I totally agree with you. I totally agree. Claps, like in the mids could, the mid I think could be a little louder. And I totally agree that the claps could also just have a little like reverb from Ivan too. I totally agree.
Okay. Everybody hear me? Hello?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I wanted to make sure because last time I started talking and you couldn't hear me. So I think what you just said, you were talking about claps in the mids. I think in general, just sort of listening to this. So well, first of all, the bass is the lead, right? The bass is the main melody. There isn't another higher element on top.
No, I wanted the bass to be both the bass and the melody.
Okay. I think that's cool. I wouldn't mind there to be a hint of something, like not a lead on top of this, but if there was something to like respond to it every now and then.
Yeah. I was thinking of adding vocals to it or something. Don't know what.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then if you're leaving this open for vocals, then the vocals are going to be the thing, right? So that totally makes sense.
Okay.
I really like your pad and the atmospheric elements in the background.
Yeah.
I think actually, I mean, it's good to keep stuff like that not too loud in your mix because it can kind of make it a little too mellow or a little washed out. But in this case, I think you could bring it up a little more. And, maybe that's like a final mix down thing. I don't know if you're quite there yet. But, in this part, this is so nice. And it could be louder. Yeah. And, even if it's just only louder in that section, if you think about bringing out that element in the mix a little bit more when the other stuff has fallen away a little bit.
Yeah.
But, or if you just kind of look at how it's balanced in the mix over the whole thing, I wouldn't mind having that atmospheric element brought out a little bit more.
Sure.
Are you... I know it's just the typical move to like duck the bass line with the kick drum a little bit. I don't know if you're doing that at all.
Yeah, I haven't sidechained the bass.
Okay, I think it could be a little more aggressive because the bass is so loud that I'm losing the thump, sort of the upper thump of the kick a little bit.
Okay.
So I think you could be a little more aggressive with the ducking on the bass. And it's got, the whole thing is kind of mixed. Is it sort of purposely like sort of slightly fuzzy lo-fi mixed down? Is that sort of the tone you're going for?
Yeah.
Right. That's good. And I think, I don't know what you've processed your drums with, but they could maybe pop a little bit more. I don't know if you use like any kind of transient shaping plugins, but that's one way. If you could go in and like give like the kick and like the snare and like, or whatever else is in there to like just pop a little bit more. That's one way you could go about it. Or, you know, if you are, what are you processing the drums with?
Let me just check my, I'm using Logic Pro X, just in case anyone wondered. Let me pull it up. I think I'm just using, honestly, a plugin that was with Logic Pro. I think
The Logic Pro native plugins are good.
Yeah.
Those effects are good. Yeah.
Originally, I tried to use a live drum thing, but that, if anyone's ever tried to just do live drum editing, is a nightmare. And so I just kept it simple. I think, what's the name of it? It's this thing called Silver Lake GB. And I just did a ton of like overdrive, big crusher, and then I just changed a lot of the bass I just changed a lot of it so I had real elements like the hi-hat and the snare. So it wasn't like crunchy.
Gotcha. So I think the tone of it, you know, from the distortion and the various things you're doing sounds really cool, but also you got to remember when you clip things, you're taking away dynamic range, you know, from that. So like what might have been a snappier snare is going to get chopped off on the top. And so it's about that, finding that balance, but between like getting that crunchy sort of lo-fi distorted feel, but then also having like a little bit of a snap to the transient so it pops. And that, you know, that's why you might look into, I mean, you could go back and rebalance all your effects. You could also do parallel processing. You could like mix in some of the dry signal to bring back some transients and some brightness. And then, you know, as I mentioned, you could try like a transient shaper that where you can have control over, like, you know, making that without using a compression, increasing or decreasing the transients or the body of those drum sounds. That could help, you know, having them pop a little bit more in that mix. But overall, I think, I mean, I'd have to really, I felt like maybe the last break is a little long, but then
my goal with that was to, like, a lot of those pauses I hadn't yet, but I was thinking about adding like some kind of build up or something just to be able to give it, like, have everything just kind of
some kind of transitional effect, you mean?
Yeah,
like a
like
whooshy noise or
whooshy
something
kind of just
swirly?
like build up the pitch going up and then just like the crash. Just
That's great.
Just explode.
So yeah, so you're these pauses are meant to be filled with something, and then you know they are working to create anticipation, and how you fill those up, that's going to make it or break it. And it could even just be like, if there's a vocal, that could be like a phrase at the end of a last verse or something, you know. So that could work. But anyway, yeah, it's a nice track. I like the style, and I think it's definitely working. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.
Perfect timing.
I'm watching the clock.
Yeah.
I guess we need to queue up what's next. Let's see what I have in the next. I've got a lot of emails from Thomas to go through here. We have all right. Some of these are giving me multiple choices, so
yeah, I sent a bunch of links because my songs are only 1 minute
Ivan,
long.
right?
Yeah, so
gotcha.
like you could play just 3 if you want to listen to all 3 at once, or you could just play one and say something and then play another and say something. I didn't expect it like we would get through a bunch, but I did put them in priority order.
All right, so I'll start with your first.
And so I just also wanted to say that I do have Logic up and ready to go if you want to see it, and I've also got
great.
And also in terms of what I'm going for, like, I know this is all rough. I have a pretty rough ethic, but I want things to be good at the same time. But it's like I tend to be pretty quick and dirty, and just get the next idea. And I'm not really trying to go for a specific thing. I'm just trying to do my thing. This particular song also was written in the time we're in, let's say. It's thematically
Okay.
appropriate.
So maybe if you're lucky, a little zeitgeist.
Even though we can't see it, we know it's closing in. An invisible force that's charting its course, yet we only know where it's been. So we heed the calls and stay within these walls. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine, 'cause we're all just buying time. I'm used to social distance, I spend a lot of time on my own, but on my own terms. And what I've learned is that everyone fears the unknown. So we heed the calls and stay within these walls. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine, because we're all just buying time.
That was short. No.
Sometimes angels communicate with us.
Wait, sorry. I think that was just the next thing playing in the SoundCloud queue there. So obviously, yeah, the lyrics are telling us something that we all sort of understand and are part of right now. That's cool. This went by so fast. I'm going to listen to it again. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I the first time I'm listening to the lyrics and reading the lyrics, and the second now I'm going to listen more closely to the music behind you.
Yeah.
Even though we can't see it, we know it's closing in. An invisible force that's charting its course, yet we only know where it's been. So we heed the calls and stay within these walls. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine, 'cause we're all just buying time. I'm used to social distance, I spend a lot of time on my own, but on my own terms. And what I've learned is that everyone fears the unknown. So we heed the calls and stay within these walls. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine, because we're all just buying time.
Right. So second time around, listening.
Sometimes.
Pause. SoundCloud. I gotta say, doing feedback on like 1 minute, and this is a little bit of a challenge. So tell me again, like you do a lot of these, you do a lot of short tracks. Are these like just getting an idea down that you're going to revisit, or?
Yeah, well, it's a mix of things. Partially, it's to feed the Instagram beast. It's a way of me generating content that on a regular, like once or twice a week, without having to take a picture of myself or like here's me in the studio. And I do have a lot of ideas that are spilling out, so it is a way of getting down ideas. But I also, after doing it for a while, started I don't only write short songs, but I did kind of embrace it as its own sort of compositional challenge. Like, what can I get in a minute? And I kind of like it as a creative construct. But yeah, on a couple of these songs, I actually have gone back and made them into fuller songs. So some of them will probably be that.
What about this one?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about it yet. It's brand new. but I listened to it, and to me, it feels like I could be satisfied with it in its present form. This one, whereas some of them, I listen to them and I'm like, oh, this one wants more song.
No, I kind of agree with you there. Like, I'm hearing this and it exists. This could be it. And you've got a really clear idea about, like there's a style here for sure. Like the musical ideas and the sounds that you've selected. I mean, it doesn't give it's polished enough. Like it's very simple. The sounds are simple. It sounds to me kind of deliberately sort of lo-fi and it's got a vintage tone to it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
are you picking sounds like that on purpose? So like it?
Yeah, or yes, I am, and if they don't come out of the box that way, then I think I put effects on them until they sound that way.
Okay.
So I think,
All right.
yeah, it's not like I'm like, oh, I want to sound like a thing, but this is the kind of thing that I keep
So
gravitating towards.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like you chose this aesthetic. It's not like you didn't sound like somebody's old demo off a 4-track because you don't know how to do better. It sounds like you picked this kind of
Yes, that's
vintage vibe purposefully. All right.
Yes.
So that said, do you want it to sort of be a more polished
Potentially,
sort
yeah.
of
Like
production? Okay.
ultimately, like I will do a release of some kind, which will
Uh-huh.
include extending some of these songs into a proper length, but
Right.
also would involve actual polishing the production in a way that I think things are not
Okay.
now. And I'm
All right.
always
So
trying to like, what do I need to be thinking about as a self-producer?
okay. So that said, maybe we can, since we've got a little bit more time here, and honestly, I don't think we need to pick this one apart. I think it actually, you're
Okay.
talking about like Instagram and capturing a moment, and you've done that, and you've presented a feeling, and the content here is like, I don't think we need to pick it apart. But
Okay.
out of the
Nothing
other
sounds
songs that you
glaringly
sent,
wrong.
is there one that you sort of feel like it needs more, or it's just a sketch that could be developed fully, or you have questions about? Let's pick one more real quick.
Let's see, of the ones I sent you, I think the next one, For Us, should be a longer song. It sort of sounds
Okay.
like it's got a beginning and an end and no middle. But I mean, I could pick other ones like that, but that one you've already got the link to.
One that I have a link for, yeah.
Yeah, so
Which one?
For Us, the next one down.
Oh, For Us, sorry.
Yeah.
For Us, got it. Everybody see that? Do you guys see? Okay.
Yes. You might have something that I don't, but it doesn't matter. It's not important. I might have something that you want, but it doesn't matter. It's not important. Tonight is just for us. Tonight is just for us. Tonight is just for you and me.
Okay. Yeah. So I think this definitely could, you could do a lot more with the arrangement of the instrumental here. And I don't know what else you might have written in terms of lyrics, but if this were to be like developed into, say, like a DJ friendly record, you don't need more lyrics. It could just be, a hook and a verse, and that it repeats.
Right.
I think, listen, just I'm trying to imagine this sort of the instrumental of this, the bringing the drums out, and maybe even experimenting with different drum sounds, more punchy, more powerful drums, because it sounds like it wants to be tougher. And it's funny, even though like the Tonight Is Just For Us is kind of like, oh, that's nice, that's sweet and romantic, but the music has a more tense feeling. And it, taking the vocals out of the equation, if it was just an instrumental, I would want that bass to be a little heavier and the drums to be pumping a little bit harder. And I would look at kind of how to extend the sections to fill up, a few more minutes, and maybe even a couple more layers of, another, like maybe like a melodic, like a synth lead, maybe even something kind of 80s, synth pop, synth wave, or Italo disco kind of that's what this reminds me of. There's some like, early to mid 80s Italo disco that's very like, it's dance floor, but the songs are kind of sad and melancholy.
Yeah.
If you were to like capture a little bit of that vibe, and look into using some kind of vintage synths, like Roland and Moog and that kind of thing, and sort of build up the production there. And again, the vocals, it's very personal. It's you, and I mean, I don't take this the wrong way, but like, it's sort of, a little bit. Gosh, what's the word? I don't want to criticize your vocal performance, but it's not like, you're not singing like a pop star. Let's put it that way.
No,
it's
I
very
know that.
personal and your own kind of vibe.
Yeah.
But you can use that. You can, present that in the right context for it to work even more effectively.
You feel like it can still be my vocal that is mine, but more strongly presented.
I mean, have you listened to much kind of like minimal synth kind of music, late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, kind of like cassette orient?
A lot of that
seems like
stuff
you're kind of
has gone into the mix here. Yeah. I mean,
so you're aware of all
consciously, but
that.
it's
So
there. Yeah.
I think you've got I think maybe look into on the production side, on the sound design side, like looking into the sort of the types of drum sounds you're using and the synths that you're using, and you could polish this more while still keeping this vibe that you have.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's pretty good. Let's thank you for both of those submissions, and
thank you for your comments.
let's you're welcome. Let's move along to the next.
Awesome, Ivan.
Yeah.
John and the rest of you, I actually have to take off. I'm in Berlin, so I'm 6 hours ahead of you guys. But you're in good hands.
Good night, Max.
Good night. Thomas and John will take care of you.
Thank you, Max.
Thanks, Max.
So, thanks so much for coming. And we're going to do these every week.
Fab.
Same time.
Love it.
Different instructor. And then
Cool.
also every week, we now have your questions answered on Saturdays at 12. And you can ask any question. Yesterday we had Justin Beck. We had a great conversation about like vocal production and all kinds of music rabbit holes that we discussed. That's every Saturday at 12. And then on Tuesday, I don't want to give it away yet, but there's a big thing happening on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Live stream. So watch our IG channel. What else? We have all this. If you want to rewatch it, it's on our YouTube channel. So if there's any comments that John left that you wanted to hear again, it's all on our YouTube channel. And John's given a synthesis class starting April 6th. So if you guys are if you want to learn from John himself, that information should be in the chat, or I think Thomas can share it.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat right now.
Okay, cool. Great.
Thanks, Max.
But thanks, John, and I'll see you guys later.
Right. So is it Arnie? Is that how you say it, or Arn? Sorry.
You have a choice. Either way you can go.
Okay.
I'm good with either.
So you submitted two. We have Dirty Joker, or More Than I Expected.
So the first one is just first one at the top, maybe one to start. And you don't necessarily have time to go to the outside. It's only 1 minute long, not because I'm using Ivan's format, only because one of the things that we had done in the past is brought ideas to these feedback sessions with the idea of, okay, it's not mixed, it's not whatever, but I have this structure, what might be added or removed for it. So that's sort of what this is. This is sort of a minute idea. What could I do with it?
Great. Right. So tell us about, well, first of all, nice, good feeling.
Thank you.
To
tell you a little bit about
skills. Yeah, tell us a little bit about like what you're playing some of this, like the instruments are live.
So I and this is from feedback last time I brought a song that I'd worked on a couple of years ago, and I'd actually played guitar on it, and I hadn't been doing that in a while. So this piece, I actually thought, okay, I'll play some guitar chords, just one shot, and then I'll write some stuff over the top. Just around my circumstance, I used to have like keyboards and tons of guitars and everything. Since I moved to New York, I'm basically writing everything in, just writing in notes rather. I have no keyboard, but I do have a cheap acoustic guitar. So that's where this came from. I just thought, oh, I'll play some chords and write some keyboards.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, and it sounds pretty good. As far, having, limited setup and not having all sorts of different instruments to record. And, I assume that means, like the drums, for example, are
from U-Jam. There's my favorite drum set. So it's basically, it's just, it's a whole bunch of different drum types, but you can do things like adjust the time and stuff. So it's basically MIDI drums. But I'm arranging the drums, not writing them. I'll write small sections, but mostly it's a drum arrangement.
So it's generating patterns and you're arranging those patterns.
That's right.
Kind of. Okay.
And I actually haven't gone very far with this one. I basically just did, it's pretty much a drum loop that goes over 8 bars that repeats with just very few variations.
Okay. So how we approach comments here, it sort of depends on, what your goals are and where you want to take it. And you're looking for ideas on what to do with this. From a musical standpoint, like, it's working, right? It's catchy, it's nice to listen to. It's a good chord progression. And there's a lot of little things going on in there that you could develop into something more, of course. Thinking about it from a production standpoint, I mean, one of the reasons I mentioned the drums specifically is I could tell they kind of sound a little generic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the tone of the drums, but that could be okay. Like if you were writing music for like, commercial use, like sound library or like for background music for like, videos and stuff, that might be exactly what it needs. But if you're looking to kind of be more distinctive and more artistic about it, you want to start thinking of like more carefully about the sounds you're using. So again, it depends on sort of what your goals are and where you're trying to go with it. I would love to hear this without the drums, just to hear, because like without the drums, we're going to hear sort of a more personal sound, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's another thing I wonder, like, what if you created more space in this? What if there was it was fewer layers? I'm going to listen to this again, actually, before I say anything else. That comes up. Right. So couple of thoughts about the drums. I mean, have you done sort of drum programming on your own?
Yeah, and just to lay on the line, this is really out of the box with just like I basically laid down the drum track only to have something to play to. I haven't really worked on the drums yet, so
it's just keeping time.
I haven't adjusted the drums at all, other than to turn down the snare a bit. So it's really right out of the box drums.
Oh, okay. All right, so yeah, I'm not going to beat you up about the drums.
Okay.
But I would say this: once you get around to actually like either programming or playing your own drums, is experiment with getting away from boom bap boom bap boom bap. There's if you listen to the syncopation of the instruments, that's why it would be nice to hear this without the drums at all, because it's actually quite sophisticated, the syncopated rhythms from the other stuff. And it would be nice to like have the drums sort of accent that rather than tie it down to 1, 2, 3, 4 the whole time.
Yeah, I follow you.
And give it some space, and make it a little bit less typical rhythmically. That's just that's sort of my personal thing.
Great direction,
like,
I think.
I mean, it's funny because I've been producing like dance music, techno, house, etc. for years and years and years, and so much of it's just boom, 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 boom. And what's interesting about it is the in-between stuff, in between the quarter notes. But lately, a lot of the music I've been even more inspired by has no steady kick drum at all. And I've just like, yeah, I still will make a pumping techno track, but a lot of the times I want to just syncopate everything and look for different ways of expressing rhythmically. So that would be something to think about. And explore outside of just your typical kind of rock drum kit sounds as well. What other types of drums would be nice. So just something to think about going forward.
Yeah. Okay.
It'll help it be a little bit more. It'll help it stand out and be more distinctive if it's not okay. And again, this is out of the box for demo purposes, but different counting differently, even like halftime or whatever. Just looking at different meters. Then that little part that I listened to twice. Right. That could probably use some tightening up. I felt like, if that were a band playing together, the end of that section, they would be all like kind of rhythmically tighter. It sounds a little jumbled. They're kind of, it sounds like you're jamming, which you were, right? You're kind of jamming with yourself as you lay these parts in. But I think like a tighter turnaround there where all the band kind of plays a fill together, where everybody kind of goes bump, 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 bump.
Yeah, I hear that.
Rather than it sort of, that might be something you could, that's something you can dial in when you work on the arrangement for this. The timing and the placement of that might change if you extend this beyond, like a minute or so.
Yeah, my target is to try and make it like a 3.5 minute piece. So I was going to sort of take these pieces, maybe one other, a bridge in there, and try and, turn it into something interesting.
I even think it would be fun if you had a kind of like a section where it breaks down and it was maybe just like drums and some of the bass with some stabs from the other instruments every now and then.
Okay,
if
cool.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And also, don't take this the wrong way. As it is, it sounds like a nice intro to a TV show.
Yes,
like
actually, that was in fact what I had in mind.
Then do take it.
Sort of a 70s sitcom type of thing. Okay. Maybe a little bit.
If you want to go for that 70s sound, if that's like then definitely like the right drum kit, like a vintage drum kit, like with that sort of tone would be great. A little bit of a heavier, kind of funkier drum sound would work really well, as opposed to like a lighter, cleaner kind of generic kit. So sorry to keep going back to the drums. It's just, I work with drums a lot. So.
Okay. Oh, it's good direction. Thank you.
Anyway, yeah, that was really nice, and you obviously know how to play, and just having an acoustic guitar and like a laptop, it's sounding pretty good.
Thank you.
So we could potentially squeeze in another one, or we can move along to another person.
Yeah, you could skip ahead to another person, because we're all here,
Great. Thanks very much. So let's see who should be next. And all right, that was Arnie. We did Ivan. Let's check out Meryl's track. I think I have to You shared this in a Google Drive.
Yeah.
Who did you share it with? Because
I think everyone.
actually, okay, because I wasn't able to get access using the account that I happened to be logged into. Let me try it again with a different switch accounts.
I sent you a 343.
Okay, so yeah, I don't have. Can you just change it so, like, maybe you can put like like share a link in the chat that I can just click through to that doesn't need permission. I don't know if you can do that quickly.
Let me try. Let me see if it uploaded. Yeah, it might take me a second. I can do it real fast if you want. I just have to upload it.
Okay, let's you take care of that, and just so we don't have too much dead air here, let's move on to another submission now. I just want to make sure I've gone through everything that was sent to me by Thomas. So we have 1, 2, 3. We've done those. We did Arnie. We did Ivan. We have you, and now I guess whatever else is going to be. Who have we not heard from? Who's here right now? Who might be screen sharing? Anybody?
Nobody has anything? Sure.
Well,
I mean, I can, but I don't know. Just a project.
No, because I don't have anything else from Thomas sent to me, so it's either one of you guys or we wait for Meryl. Do you want to go ahead?
Did anybody submit a track to us at our 343 email and not play yet besides Meryl? I just want to double check. So I believe John should have gotten everything that was submitted to us. Oh, it looks like Meryl's got a link here.
Okay, let's go ahead with that. So I'm going to try this link.
See if that works.
Yeah, I've got it. So I'm downloading, and then we'll open it up in live so we can see and hear it.
Awesome.
All right, almost there. Titration, is that's the track, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oop.
You want to speed it up to 127?
Warping's off now, so it should be playing back at the right tempo.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. All right. Nice. So, yeah, I think, some of you might have heard Merrill say before that he took a class with me at 343. And so I want to acknowledge that I hear like some of the results of what we talked about in the class, and I'm pleased about that. I'm going to say it's pretty solid ideas in here.
Yeah.
Like it's, I remember there were some times in the past where there was a lot more layering and stuff going on, and I feel like you strip things down somewhat, which is definitely good. And I think overall, like you're almost there. I think I had some arrangement sort of things to look at, and then some sort of synthesis, sound design things that come to mind. All right, let's just go back to the beginning and listen to how it builds up from the intro. All right. So far, okay. And then I think you bring in this acidy kind of bass sound. Right, you're increasing the complexity of the pattern, and I think, are you doing any automation? It sounds like it's getting a little bit brighter later.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I guess the arrangement thing I thought was, all right, the first 16 bars was a little, there's a kind of a lower drony layer that I felt like that could be tightened up and be less drony and more rhythmic. And then the acidy kind of bass comes in, and it sort of disappears suddenly. It felt a little like it just sort of, let's listen to it.
Yeah, I take it away at some point.
Right, the timing of that was awkward to me a little bit.
Yeah, like there.
So like listening to it out of context, it sounds okay. And it's kind of, you're just switching from one vibe to another vibe. Like the acid goes off, the melody comes in. The timing of it, I felt like wasn't quite right. And I wonder if, because you've established this groove with the acidy thing, and then it right in the beginning of the track, it goes away after a little more than 30 seconds. So maybe there's a smoother way to do that. Maybe instead of cutting it off, maybe you lower the filter, bring it back, bring it down in the mix somehow. But like, I feel like it would be, you just introduced that idea. It's too soon to cut it off suddenly.
Okay.
Going back to the very beginning, just this other kind of, this sustained, right? If that were like, if it were to be less of a pad, I mean, is it playing multiple notes, or is it just a one sustained?
It's just playing
note?
one. And sometimes it'll.
But I hear like a da 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 in there.
Let me look. Yeah, no, it is like hitting the same note again. It's not playing like one note. It's hitting.
All right.
It's the same note, but it's like hits it a bunch.
If it were a more percussive sound, and not it, because right now I can tell that it's a rhythm, but it's because it's a soft pad kind of a sound. It's just sort of droning. And I think it will be a little more energetic if you make it a shorter percussive sound. And in general, there's some going through it. I would say overall, like, it's very soft sounding. Like you'd think it's got this big kick and it's real punchy, but like the energy level of some of the synths, it's all very filtered and dark. And maybe that's what you want, but maybe in the intro, it's okay. But later on in the track, I feel like it could be brightened up.
Yeah.
And that's something to play with. Like also in here, right? This is pretty energetic. Right, and then you go into this more anthem-y kind of part where the new melody comes in. That's really nice. Is there? I think there's an LFO sweeping up and down, like modulating the filter.
Yeah.
If that and it's floaty, and that LFO, it sounds like it's not synced up, so it's just kind of going in and out at whatever slow rate it is. And I think you should be more precise about that. I'd rather hear it swell up and down, with the arrangement, and be purposeful about when it gets brighter and when it gets darker. Because what happens is, the musical progression goes along, and melodically it becomes a little bit more intense, but then the filter sweeps down at sort of out of
The wrong
time.
point. Yeah.
And it sounds like all of a sudden it's going back behind the clouds, right?
Yeah.
So I would be more rather than just have a arbitrary slow LFO sweeping that up and down. Maybe instead you should automate it and have it just sort of swell up and down with the tension and release of the music. And then, of course, it can become brighter and more full right before the beats come back. So sort of making the modulation work with the musical phrases more closely. Okay, then there's another melodic. Okay, you have the pads kind of da 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 da, and then the lower bum 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 comes in. I think that should be brighter, or if it starts darker, it should get brighter. It seems like it wants to be more energetic, but it's not quite getting there. And so, opening these sounds up is going to help achieve that higher level.
Yeah.
That should work pretty well with this style. Like you can see the energy level ramps up in a way because you're layering stuff.
Yeah.
But I'd like to hear more high frequencies here. You're going to create more euphoria by opening up the filters and letting it be a little shiny and uplifting before the drums come back in. Especially here. Like you could really ramp up the tension. I mean, the claps do it, but all the sounds should be lifting up.
Wait a minute.
So, yeah, I think you're close there. And I go back through your arrangement again and listen carefully to your transitions. And do you know what? When I'm working on an arrangement and I want to be sure that the different sections and changes that feel right. And I'm really deep into the arrangement and my head's in it, and I'm like, I think I like it. I think it's good. But I'm not sure, or maybe I might think it's good, but then I still want to give myself a break and have a new perspective. What I'll do is I'll put on my track and walk away from it, but leave it playing and go do something else. Forget you're listening to it. And every time this happens to me, every time I do this, the same thing, if there's a problem, I'll immediately, as soon as that problem kind of comes up, my attention will jump back to the music and go, oh, wait a minute, that didn't feel right. So sometimes when you're working on a complex arrangement, and it's easy to like get used to it and not realize that, oh, that should happen 2 bars earlier, or that one, like I put the sample in here and it could have sounded better there. You may not realize those things because you're so used to it after hearing it over and over again. So like changing your perspective and either listening to it again another day, or if you need to work on it sooner than later, what I just said about like walking away from it, let it play. Don't look at the arrangement on the screen. Just half listen to it. Like go, wash your dishes or something and leave it in the background, or read a book or whatever it is, something that isn't like going to totally distract you from listening. I guarantee that if there's something that doesn't feel right, like when the kick drum drops out or when the bass line comes in or where the sample happens or what the melody's doing, you will notice what is or isn't working somehow when you change your perspective like that. So you might try that for this, just to give you some perspective on, how long the sections are and how the transitions are working.
Awesome.
So,
thanks.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to add? Constructive criticism, praise first. Feel free to unmute and chime in. Okay, well,
I dug it. I thought it was a really cool track. I liked the energy. I liked the use of the rim shots. I liked the rhythms. I liked it. That's it.
great. Thanks.
More 303 maybe. The higher
More
pitch.
303.
More 303.
Oh, like more tweaky, like all right.
Yeah.
Well, you could get that's another thing is it's not an actual 303, but it's a synth that's being sort of played like a 303, and it's got the
Yeah.
whole resonance thing. If another way of getting a little more energy would be to like to overdrive it a little bit, give it some distortion to get those the resonance of the filter kind of cracks up a little bit and it sounds a little sharper. And that it will make it sound more kind of acid right away if you were to do that. But you want to do that carefully though, because you've also want to balance that with these nice musical elements, the melody and the anthemic kind of chord progression and the moody pads in the background. So, but yeah, I mean, I think we did that in the class, right? We put some distortion on the 303 sound to kind of make it a little more sharp. It's possible to kind of mix that so that it sound like you can distort it, but also kind of EQ and compress it so it sounds smooth and musical at the same time, and it more easily fits into kind of like a trancey soundscape, let's say. So something to think about that might give you that a little bit of an edge and a little more energy. So that's
Awesome.
a good
Yeah, I'll give it a
suggestion.
try.
All right. So I mean, that's all the submissions that I was sent. So Thomas, are there any others that I'm not seeing? Or is there anyone here who didn't submit a file, but that had planned on sharing something? We could do a screen share.
As far as I know, I think we should have covered everything.
Okay.
We were sent in, but yes, if anybody's in here now that we haven't gotten to for whatever reason, now's your time to speak.
Right. So we've got a little more time to fill then, and we can. I guess so. If you have something else you want to share, or if you have questions, or we can just hang out and talk. It's fine.
Yeah. Why don't we? If anybody has some questions for John while he's here, because we're going to be switching instructors every week. And we'll have a new instructor next week, and who knows how long till John will be back on. Why don't we see if we can open it up for like a Q&A? Anything music related is cool. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but feel free to dive in.
You said that you're getting bored of 4x4, and I found the same thing. I'm trying to make this track. It's like a Techno 127. I can't. Like I've been working for 2 weeks, and if I work on other stuff like a lower BPM electro, for example, it's gonna work out. Like in a day, I'm gonna have a new track, but I can't. Like, how do I
make a track in a style that I'm bored of?
Are you getting stuck like that? Sometimes do you feel like you want to make something, but it's like you feel like you're there, but you're not fully there because there's some things going on in your head that cannot be expressed in that format, but you still feel like you can find a way, but you trying. Do you understand? I'm kind of stuck.
Yeah, you're feeling stuck because I mean I know you, and I know your music, and it seems like you've been fairly prolific. Like you could easily bang stuff out. Maybe though, what's going on in the world is changed how you feel about being creative. Maybe there's some obvious reason why you might not be so easily pouring those ideas out.
I think there's something to that actually.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I am. I was writing other stuff, and it wasn't feeling. I don't know. It wasn't flowing out of me in the right way. So I just kind of like, all right, well, what am I feeling? And that sort of, informed, the recent stuff I've done, and like whether or not it fits into whatever big picture I'm not worrying about it. Cause I do think that, it's not business as usual for any of us. So I think that, art is going to need to reflect where we are.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. And for some of us, it may make us feel like we don't want to be creative right now. Maybe you're your mind or your heart is elsewhere. And I don't think that's, I don't, you know, so people say, oh yeah, we have all this time now, we're stuck at home, be creative, do stuff. But like, it's, if, you know, that could also be kind of like cracking the
yeah.
whip. Like, no, if you don't feel it, then do something different. And then when you're ready, come back. So yeah,
But
don't beat yourself up because you feel like it's not, you're not being productive. It's fine.
on the contrary, I find myself getting inspired a lot, and then
And then not
can't do
following
anything.
through.
Yeah, I can't. I want to, but I can't. But I'm so like, oh, I mean, I like that track so much. I like this kind of, I like this feeling. I want to express it, but no, but like,
all right. If
yeah,
that's the case, so you have this urge to be creative, but then when you sit down to actually do it, it doesn't come.
it comes.
Is that
like,
kind of?
let's say I'm working on a track, right? And I have this 303s and Roland Cloud, and I actually did a lot of mapping. I'm just tweaking the sounds, trying to mix and find that perfect spot. I feel like, oh, I have this feeling right here. I did this kind of filter there. The trim is the special spot, and everything, like 2-3 instruments sound great. They give me a feeling. I pause it, go back to it, and I don't feel it anymore. And just like, what is that?
I that's actually, I mean, at the best of times, you know, when the world is working the way we expect it to, that still happens. That always happens to me. That's totally normal. I would just say put it aside and do another one.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
And I
Too much.
guarantee, I know, but still do it anyway, because you will have this library of ideas to go back to or forget. It doesn't matter. The fact is that, you know, you got it down, you got the sketch out. It's there if you want to go back to it, and you can move along. And one day you'll either go back to it and go, wow, this is way better than I remember. I'm going to finish it.
Yeah.
You know, I do that all the time. Actually, I literally have sketches that I made in classes at Dubspot like 5 years ago. And I'm like, I wonder what this sounds like, thinking it's just going to be some, you know, nothing special idea that I rattled off in a minute to demonstrate a concept to somebody. And it actually turned into a whole track. So you never know, like, so it's totally worth trying and continuing to try and getting the idea down. And don't beat yourself up if you get stuck. Just keep moving.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I think, sure. So yeah, I totally, I'm with you. Like I'm still writing, and not everything is coming out the way I want it. And even like literally something I started last week, this week, I'm like, it's not so great. But last week I was bopping up and down to it and totally into it. So I know it's just, it's my mood changing. The music didn't get bad all of a sudden. It's just, I feel differently today. So, and another day, I mean, literally just moving, I moved my little setup here for teaching and working on music into the living room. Literally so I can, during the week, be working and watching my kids while they do their online schooling. And just moving my speakers to another location in the apartment made everything sound different. And now I'm like, it's not right anymore. But but as soon as I get used to being in the new space and the new setup, it'll start sounding right again. So yeah, I think we're kind of all in this. You know, like if you're recording acoustic guitar in your living room and you're usually in a studio with a bunch of synths and amps and stuff, that's a different thing. But you can still make it happen once you adjust to your new circumstances. Anyone else have some thoughts or questions about being creative in these circumstances? Or we can, you know, we can change the subject and get technical, anything.
I mean, just as far as that goes, like that's another reason, like not that I was doing anything differently before these circumstances, but one of the reasons, like I'm just churning out new ideas so quickly, even if they are in some cases just sketches, in some cases not perfect, is it doesn't like place as much importance on any one thing. And I feel like especially now when I'm kind of like all over the place in terms of like what I'm thinking about, what I'm feeling about, it's kind of like I'm trying not to put too much pressure on myself in terms of, oh, I gotta like get this one thing done, or this has to be just right. It's like, if it's not just right, it's okay if it's not just right, and like just see what flows out next. So I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, I think we're probably all in a similar space right now. So, let's see. We've got 5 more minutes. We can.
I actually had one more 1-minute song. I wouldn't mind your comments on if nobody else has anything to say.
I was waiting for someone to say, "Hey, let's listen to one more thing."
It's an instrumental.
Okay.
So it would be
Sure.
it would be the third one in that email I sent you, or that you got from Thomas.
Flame Out.
Yeah, Flame Out.
Right. So yeah, we'll have one more from.
It's only a minute.
That's great. No, thank you for helping us fill out the time. And I'll get my sharing going again. All right. Come on. Zoom. There it goes. Short and sweet.
Sometimes angels communicate
and there
with
goes
us.
SoundCloud with its playlist again. Sorry. So I like it, and I kind of, just to get to the point real fast, I wish it sounded even bigger and heavier, like more blown out, more saturated. Like I'd love to have the drums be bigger and. Like, I mean, you're saying, you put your tags in here: experimental, industrial, cinematic, like more industrial, more clangy, more bangy. Yeah. And I mean, some bigger sounding drums. And then, like, I mean, it's already kind of crunched up and saturated, but I think you could
punch it up more.
Like, try to make the bass sound even more like it's about to break the subwoofers, just like push it a little bit somehow.
Okay.
I mean, even if you just left the bass as is and then like worked on the drums sort of being bigger.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly there could be a little. There's no toms in it really for the most part.
Yeah. Well, even it doesn't have to be more layers of drums. Just like the actual play around, try maybe experiment with some different drum sounds, some different drum kits, and like find like a kick drum that's really, you know, even almost more like orchestral timpani kind of taiko drum, like big round resonant deep cinematic percussion would be cool, as opposed to just like rock drum kit kind of sound.
Got it. Okay, that's a good idea.
So I think that would work really well. And then if you were to extend this out longer, it could even you could easily just be alternating sections of like drums and then drums and synths, and you could go back and forth and sort of play with contrast between those layers. If you're thinking, if you wanted to extend the arrangement out a little bit beyond a minute. So
cool.
So yeah, thanks everybody. I mean, we've got 2 more minutes, so we don't absolutely have to shut it off yet. But I want to say, I'm glad everybody was able to share their music, and we could all check it out together. And I don't know. I have to say I enjoy doing this sort of thing. I mean, of course, it's I do it when I teach a course for 343, especially in the synthesis course I do. It's synthesis for producers, and I would say the producer part, the showing up with ideas and doing stuff part, is equally as important as the learning about synthesizers part. And what we're doing here in a feedback session is a big part of how I run my class at 343. We're like, we want to look at how you're using the sound. So, you know, we might do a class on subtractive synthesis, but and I'll be answering questions about you know, how things work and demonstrating different concepts and about synthesis. But really, the most important part of it is hearing how the students are using those ideas in their music, in their compositions, in their productions, whatever you're doing. So, and you know, so just to throw that out there, like I like doing this kind of feedback and constructive criticism, and then incorporating that with like the curriculum that, you know, that the course is following. And I don't know, a couple of you have done it with me, so you know how I do things, and you know, from that view, thanks for coming back, and nice to see you again. And also Adonis, you know, I mentioned he's been a private student of mine, so glad to see you again. Thanks for coming around, and actually thanks to all of you.
Yes, thank you, John, for being a part of it. I've been on a lot of the in-person sessions for a while now, and definitely changed the dynamic. I mean, for one thing, we're online now, but two, having the instructor here, you know, definitely adds a lot to the experience. Somebody as accomplished an experience as you, especially. So we really much appreciate you giving us your time and going through it all and monitoring it for us.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Seconded.
And yeah, I look forward to the next time.
Yeah, it's good to see a lot of familiar faces as well, you guys, and a couple new ones as well. So like Max mentioned, we'll be doing them every week now, and we have this other kind of more discussion based one going on Saturdays. So maybe John will be on that one in a little bit. So look out for more events like this, and always can find information on the website or Instagram, you know, any of the social media platforms to stay updated on all the latest stuff.
Thank you, Thomas.
Awesome. Thanks for hosting.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Sure
Great
thing.
to see all of you guys. I miss you.
Ditto.
Stay safe, stay well.
Yes.
You too. Thanks, John.
Yeah, everybody stay safe. Bye.
All right. I'll see you guys.